What's up, everybody? Welcome to Why We Love Horror 3.0, episode 39, and it is Dylan's second week with us. Dylan, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. This is a film that I had known absolutely nothing about, and didn't really know much about the story going in, so it was a good time.
I also knew about the movie. I didn't know anything that it was about. I'd only seen the poster. And then the funny thing was, just a funny little backstory, when I posted like the thumbnail for this, like I had a flash in my mind where I was like, did I post the wrong movie? Like, is this the same movie? Like, because the thumbnail is Sonya Walger in the hazmat gear, and I was like, is that what this movie's about? And then it turns out it was. Thank goodness, because like it's really the movie kind of without spoiling anything. It takes you places. I guess I'd say, like, it starts as one thing, it becomes another thing, and it kind of dazzles with some other stuff, and then it winds up being something else at the end. So it was entertaining for me. What were your initial non-spoiler thoughts without even saying what the movie's about?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was definitely an interesting experience knowing nothing going into it. I liked the way it slowly revealed the information throughout. But yeah, I mean, overall, it didn't leave like a massive like impression on me. I don't think. Like, again, this is another one kind of like with the Watchers we watched last time, where I don't know how long it's going to stay with me, but I liked it quite a bit, and I think it's an interesting directorial debut. So yeah.
Well, for some reason you reached this point of the video without clicking on the thumbnail or knowing what we're talking about. This is this year's New Life. It's been sitting in, I think, developmental since 2022 because it wrapped in 2022, but it really didn't get any sort of release until 2024. But New Life.
That is brutal, actually. I have to say, that's probably.
I am done.
You been living on the streets?
I'm traveling. Why are you helping me?
Freedom of reinvention built this country. I don't intend to get in its way.
We believe the subject is en route to the border. We can't let her cross. We need our best on it.
Where are we at with this?
It's already spiraling out of control. Your job is to bring in Jessica Murdoch alive, or if necessary, dead.
Does Jessica know?
She believes she's on the run for murder.
Did anyone else know? Any of the other operatives? Any of them have a clue?
What we need now is for you to put an end to this.
Jessica!
Kind of glad I didn't watch the trailer before I saw this movie, because not that the trailer gives away everything, but it definitely hints at what's really going on in the movie. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I saw like the first half of the trailer where it was just the setup, and I was like, okay, I was on board. And then I'm weird with trailers where like I can't, for some reason, when I just watch a trailer, I'm like, okay, this looks interesting. I can never really piece together from the quick clips what the film's really about. So for this, I was basically still going in blind from that point. And yeah, I think, are we gonna like continue on spoiler free or just go right into?
We can, you know what?
Yeah.
This is a hard movie to talk about without spoiling things.
Yeah.
I would say. So let's toss up spoilers. I'll just say one thing at the top before we jump into it. Like I went in, like I said, totally blind. Only saw the poster. Poster doesn't really give much away. It's just half the two girls' faces kind of like inhaling. But it starts out. We got Jessica, and she's just on the run. They give a bunch of implications that she's running from somebody, so you assume, like every other like single.
She has a black eye.
Yeah, she's a black eye. You assume she's running from domestic violence. Could not be further from the truth. She does not know why she's running. I won't spoil that yet. I will. The other thing I'll say, like, so she's not running from domestic violence. That's all I'll say. The other thing is, I don't know what the budget of this movie is, but I guarantee 50% of the budget was getting the rights to like a Rolling Stone from Bob Dylan. I guarantee that because the entire, like, that was my review on Letterboxd. It's like, we're going to just reverse engineer a body horror movie based on like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan. I don't know what you're going to do, but let's go. And it's actually the perfect song for this movie. Oddly enough, I think that stuck with the only thing that will stick with me from this movie, probably, if nothing sticks with me, is the fact that Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan plays like 1,000 times in this movie.
Yeah, that definitely was one thing that stuck out to me. I was like, is this the only song that they could pay for the licensing for? I imagine, I guess they probably charge a lot for that song, but they got the full use out of it for certain. Yeah.
That's got to be an expensive song to grab. It's such an iconic song. But anyway, I'll give you the rights. Go ahead. So like, she's not running from domestic violence. Like what really happened, Dylan?
Yeah, so apparently it all comes back to this sort of camping trip that she went with her partner, where they encountered a dog. The dog was carrying a very specific form of Ebola that turns people into basically, for all extensive purposes, zombies. And it's basically, we learned that it's basically like a not post-apocalyptic movie, but like just pre-apocalyptic, which I thought was like a really cool sell. So I was like, okay, this is interesting, because it's not often where you see movies like that where it's just set during like the breakout and them trying to contain it. And I thought that was a really interesting setup for a story. But yeah,
this movie is a mobile cabin fever with none of the comedy.
Yeah,
is basically what this is. Because like the setup for Cabin Fever and the setup for this movie are almost identical. Like it's just like somebody accidentally gets this like basically flesh-eating virus and it turns out like Jessica, the girl that contracts it, the girl that is the patient zero, I guess, unless you want to count her boyfriend as patient zero, one or the other, doesn't matter. She's actually mostly immune to whatever the strain is, or she's resistant to it. So whenever she comes in contact with people, they just die like within 24 hours. Yeah. So there's like some shadow arm of the government that's in the pocket of a pharmaceutical company that releases like these expert level, like, I guess, tracker fixers to recoup her and like, you know, either capture or terminate her basically. And that's another interesting part of the movie. Sonya Walger's character, if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I thought that stuff was interesting. I like her performance a lot. I also think it was like interesting that she was so throughout the movie, her character is dealing with Lou Gehrig's syndrome or ALS, and I thought that was interesting. Although that kind of raised some questions for me. It's like you're sending one person to prevent like this entire apocalypse, and you're sending like, I don't want to sound insensitive, but you're sending one person who's like kind of doesn't have full mobility to stop this entire like outbreak basically. And I was like, that doesn't seem entirely smart,
I think they do kind of touch on it, and it kind of makes sense if you think about it, because she was the best. She's in the early stages of ALS, and basically you find out through her conversation with Tony Amendola, the priest from The Curse of La Llorona, they expected her to die. Like they sent her because she was dying, and they expected her to die, which is so they kind of explain that away. Whether you buy that or not, whatever. But that's the reason why she was chosen as the agent to bring in Jessica.
Yeah, I get that, but also she has to walk with like a cane. She's like constantly like tripping and stuff. So it's like,
yeah, the best
maybe you could have sent like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to
send one other person. So yeah, there's the scene like even like you're right. I would agree. Like while she is expendable in the eyes of whatever agency she's working for, she's definitely compromised. Like She's still a great shot, even though she can't
Yeah.
hold a gun straight. But she is useless in a chase because the second a chase scene happens, she just like loses it and trips and falls. So like it's a weird thing to wrap your head around. It didn't bother me maybe as much as it like bothered you, only because like we know she's not like there's a scene where she's like talking to a ALS like support professional, and he's with a woman who's just like basically end stage ALS. So they kind of give you that juxtaposition that she's not anywhere near death yet. So I guess they figure that's enough to have you buy into the fact that she's still mostly capable of bringing this woman in.
Yeah, and that part I thought was kind of interesting because I could see that happening with like one of these corrupt organizations. It felt very slimy, and I guess added a lot of character to this organization at center. I thought it was interesting. And I like the her just character overall, and like the interactions when she finally like comes face to face with the main character at the end. I thought that stuff was like really, really well done. Where like she knows she has to like pull the trigger, but it's like really hard for her because she knows exactly what she's going through as well. I thought that stuff was really well done. Yeah, it's just overall just like very like efficient, like just nice little bite of a film. It's like very short. It's like 80 minutes or whatever. Like, yeah, it really gets
85 minutes. Yeah, tight film. And like, I think it's like a great title for the film too. Like New Life takes on so many different meanings throughout the film. It's like the girl's running, she's trying to escape to a new life, but like, is new life meaning the world after the outbreak? There's a lot of stuff, but the only thing that really bothered me, if I had to pick one thing that bothered me, is actually they do initially contain the outbreak. They do capture Jessica and her boyfriend after they capture the dog, and they put them in this holding facility. But it was extremely easy for her to escape this facility. Like it was basically she just like disables the light in her cell. A guy comes to give her food. He steps in. There's a scuffle. She accidentally stabs the guy and just walks from the facility. So like
it's like that was the one guy guarding the entire. Yeah. Seems like a pretty important thing to just have one person guarding.
This virus can take out humanity. We're going to put one guy in there. Yeah. The budgetary constraints. I think as far as like I don't want to say it's not really a crime procedural, but it plays out like a crime procedural because it really is like kind of like The Fugitive. It's like The Fugitive plot, but just with a communicable disease and body horror and zombies. Yeah. So I think following the plot of like U.S. Marshals, The Fugitive, and movies like that, Enemy of the State, it hits all the beats you're familiar with. It just kind of twists that genre on its head a little bit with the horror elements. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I really liked the way it reveals itself as a horror film. Like halfway through, like if I would have just started this film not knowing it was for this show and it was a horror film, like I would have thought it was again just like a procedural, this person on the run basically. Exactly. But then when you see her investigate the one farm that she stops by nearby the film, and then you see the people that are infected with the disease, and you're like, oh shit, this is the kind of film that we're in for. I thought that was a really, really fun because I wasn't exactly sure what kind of horror this was going to be going into it. So when I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a zombie film, I'm in. Really
I think it's worth noting at this point in the conversation, like the effects, the practical effects, and it's all practical effects. There's no CGI in this movie by my detection at all. Really effective, like body horror, decomposition, zombified, practical horror effects. So again, I don't know the budget of this film, but I imagine it's like 50% rights to Bob Dylan, and then of the other 50%, half of it at least has to be the special effects.
Yeah, it looked really cool, really gross, like a lot of like black like bubbles and pus and stuff on people's face that looked like really disgusting. Yeah, it was very effective stuff, which as a fan of body horror, I was a fan of that. Yeah. Heavy
decomposition. Like people are suffering before they die, and then when they die, they come back as like partially decomposed zombies. So, and it does not look bad. It is not like your B movie zombie. These are like real, like whoever the effects studio is, and I'll I'll try to put some notes in here afterwards. Whoever the effects studio is, like, kudos to them. The people who are involved in the effects in this film have futures. I do believe even the director, I think John Rossman is his name, has definitely a future doing more stuff. I don't know if he's done anything else, but I'll kick it over to you to talk a little bit about that while I look it up.
Yeah, I think the direction overall was solid. I think some minor nitpicks I have with overall filmmaking, I think will improve over time. Like, I think there were some points where I think, like, in the way it was shot visually, I think it looked a bit ugly at times. Like, just maybe, I don't know, maybe that's budgetary issues or something. But yeah, at times it just looked kind of cheap. Also, some of the editing kind of felt a little dated at points, like where there's like these. It almost felt like an MTV thing at certain points with like the editing of like the hacking and stuff. And it's like these quick shots of like wires and computer screens and like overhead drone shots. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cheesy, but yeah.
it's like a 2000s like a hacker show. You're right. I can this is actually his only credit. This is his first, there's no shorts on Letterboxd. His only credit is this movie. So like for a out of left field, no credits effort, I think this is really good for a first time effort.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything we left out of the movie aside from like the performances? I think, you know, Sonia Walger, I know her from Lost and Flash Forward, all those ABC dramas. I think you're a little too young for those, but she was on those shows. Very good as Desmond's Penny. And then that was the only thing I recognized her from. She doesn't have many movie credits. The other girl, the one that plays Jessica, I don't know her from anything really. Actually, yeah, I'm looking her up. Her only acting credit is this movie, New Life. And she did, for someone with no acting credits, incredible, I think.
She's really good.
For a debut. So, for a bunch of first-time efforts, New Life exceeds expectations. Really out of left field film that you should check out if you have not yet. So we'll drop those spoilers. And we'll start with you, Dylan.
Yeah, I think this is a really solid debut. Definitely a really fun watch for, you know, if you're looking for something just short, quick, to the point that, you know, I'd say, well, you already listened to the whole conversation. So anyways, I guess you can't really go in blind at this point. But yeah, definitely give it a shot. I think there's a lot of promise here for the director. I give it 3.5 VHS tapes overall. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
All right. Fantastic. I was really impressed by it. I'm right around the same neighborhood as Dylan. I went 4 actually on this one, just because like as a freshman effort, both in the acting and the directing, it's like really crazy good. I hear all Dylan's complaints about like some of the shots and everything, but I think whoever the cinematography director of photography is took full advantage of the fact that they were clearly in like Northern Oregon. There was a lot of like really good scenery to choose from. So I think like you kind of can get lost in it because it clearly has somebody running towards Dylan's house the entire time. Doesn't really make it there, but that's basically how I feel. 4 out of 5. That being said, we do every week. We go over our Why We Love Horror Challenge. So we pull up Bill Nye. And in case you want to play along with us, this is the website. Again, the last 4 letters that it is lowercase r, lowercase l, capital W, lowercase d, capital I. This week is week 25. We covered a bunch of non-American countries that do speak English, like the UK and Canada and Australia and New Zealand. So the task this week was to pick a horror movie that was made in a movie that also speaks English, but wasn't one of the countries we talked about yet. So I chose a movie from South Africa called The Lullaby. And I didn't know much about it going into it. I'd watched another movie called Lullaby. It was not very good. This is the latest in a long line of movies where like it's just a woman who's in postpartum depression and they try to make a horror movie out of it. There's so many of these movies and none of them are great. This also was not great. And it also has the stigma of being an uncorked entertainment film. So it's in that ITN distribution family of like meh films. This is pretty good compared to all the other films I review on Versus. But again, it still was lacking severely. And I'll cover Aaron and Abby's. Abby watched The Hole in the Ground by Lee Cronin, who obviously did a great job with The Hole in the Ground because they gave him Evil Dead Rise. So I would suggest The Hole in the Ground to you, an Irish film. And then Aaron watched another Irish film, Shrooms, which I imagine if you're into shroom culture, you'll love this movie. But if you're just like just a casual fan of shrooms, you might find the movie to be a little silly. So I'll leave that up to you to decide. Dylan, what movie did you talk about this week?
Yeah, I got worried there because I also chose an Irish film. So whenever you said this person chose an Irish film, I was like, oh no, please don't be mine. But no, I chose one that came out like around the right at the start of the pandemic. It's a film called Sea Fever, which is a really solid film that I just wanted to highlight here. Because again, it came out, I think, like literally in March of 2020, so like right when lockdown happened, and it just kind of got like dumped onto like streaming and stuff. And it really deserves a watch. Maybe I like it more than most. I'm seeing some of the people I follow on Letterboxd have it like around 3 stars, but I really enjoy it. I'm an easy mark for like aquatic themed horror because I kind of have a fear of the sea. And I think that this film is one of the few films that I've seen that like really capitalize on that and make it quite freaky. It's your average like sort of Alien knockoff where it's like them stranded at sea. They discover this like organism because they're like marine biologists, and then they're stranded at sea with this organism that's slowly killing them off. A lot of body horror in it that's like really gross and creepy. Really good stuff. Yeah, just there's many movies in this kind of like genre, I guess, that are basically Alien knockoffs, and I think this is really good Alien knockoff, so it's pretty good.
Sea Fever, you said? I'm not familiar with
Sea
it.
Fever. Yeah.
I'm gonna add that to my list. All right. And that'll do it for Why We Love Horror this week. Again, the movie was New Life. We would recommend you check it out if you can. It's streaming in most of your conventional places. That being said, every Monday we do Versus. It's bad movies only. Wednesdays, it'll flip-flop between either special edition Why We Love Horror, like this show, or special edition Why We Love Horror Trivia. Thursdays is the flagship Why We Love Horror, the show you're watching right now. Aaron and Abby should be back next week. We're covering Russell Crowe's The Exorcism next week, which I've seen the trailer a few times now. Kind of psyched about it. And then at 9:00, Horror Headlines live on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Myself and Hunter Shambliss doing that. And then Friday, the place where we all know Dylan from, Why We Love Horror Trivia. He's the champ. We're still going through the single tournament to find a good competitor for Dylan. And then we usually give you 2 episodes in that every Friday. But if you made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Find us on Facebook at Why We Love Horror. And find us on TikTok, WWL Horror. Subscribe to all that stuff, and we appreciate your patronage. And we'll see you next week.